Welcome to Fortune Forecast. You are in my book playlist, and we are going through part 3 of The Book of Life by Upton Sinclair, published in 1921 by the Payne Company. I am Daisy, your hostess, and part 3 is The Book of Love. I want to say welcome back to our Fortune community, and if you're new to my channel and this is the first time you visit is through this video, I would encourage you to visit the book playlist. That way you can catch up with the earlier chapters of this book. Make yourself comfortable. I'm going to go right into chapter 40, titled Early Marriage. Discusses love, marriages, how they can be made, and the duty of parents in respect to them. I have shown how economic forces in our society make for later and later marriage. And at the present time, economic forces are so overwhelming that all other forces are hardly worth mentioning in comparison. You are, let us say, the mother of a boy of 18, and you have what you call common sense, meaning thereby a grasp of the money facts of life. If your darling boy of 18 should come to you with a grave face and announce, "Mother, dear, I have met the girl I love, and we have decided that we want to get married," you would consider that the most absurd thing you had ever heard in all your born days, and you would tell the lad that he was a baby and to run along and play. If he persisted in his crazy notion, you and your husband and all the brothers and sisters and relatives and friends, both of the boy and the girl, would set to work by scolding and ridiculing to make life a misery for them, and 99 times out of 100 you would break down the young couple's marital intention. But now let us try another supposition. Let us suppose that your darling boy of 18 should come to you again and say, "Mother dear, some of the boys are going to spend this evening in a brothel, and I have decided to go along." Would you think that was the most absurd thing you had ever heard in all your born days? Or would you answer, "Yes, of course, my boy. That is what I had in mind when I made you give up the girl you loved"? No, you would not answer that. But here is the vital fact. It doesn't matter what you would answer, for you would never have a chance to answer. When a mother's darling wants to get married, he comes and asks his mother's blessing. But never does a mother's darling ask a blessing before he goes with the other boys to a brothel. He just goes. Maybe he borrows the money from some other fellow and next day tells you he went to a theater. Or maybe he picks up some poor man's daughter on the street and takes her into the park, or up on the roof of a tenement. Some such thing he does, to find satisfaction for an instinct which you, in your worldly wisdom or your heavenly piety, spurn and ridicule. I do not wish to exaggerate. If you are an exceptionally wise and tactful mother, you may keep the confidence of your boy and guide him day by day through his temptations and miseries and keep him chaste. But the more you try that, the more apt you will be to come to my conclusion, that late marriage is a crime against the race. The more aware you will be of the danger, either that his boy friends will break him down, or that some lewd woman may come to his bedroom in the night time. Never will you be able to be quite sure that he is not lying to you because of his shame and the pain he cannot bear to inflict upon you. Never will you be quite sure that he is hiding some cruel disease, sneaking off to some quack who takes his money and leaves him worse than before, until finally he shoots off his head, as happened to a nephew of an old and dear friend of mine. Such is the problem of the mother of a son. And now, what about the mother of a daughter? This seems much simpler because your daughter is not generally troubled with sex cravings, and if you teach her the proprieties and see that she is carefully chaperoned, you may reasonably hope that she will be chaste. But some day you expect that she will marry, and then comes your problem. If you are the usual mother, you're looking for someone who can maintain her in the state of life to which she is accustomed. If a fairy prince would come along, or a plaster saint, you would be pleased. But failing that, you will take a successful businessman, one who has made his way in the world and secured himself a position. But turn back to the figures I gave you a while ago. If this man is 30 years of age, there is at least a 50-50 chance that he has had some venereal disease. And while the doctors claim to cure these diseases absolutely, we must bear in mind that doctors are human and sometimes claim more than they perform. Every doctor will admit, if you pin him down, that these diseases burrow deeply into the tissues and many times are supposed to be cured when they are only hidden. Here is, in a nutshell, the problem of the mother of a daughter. If you marry your daughter at 17 to a lad of her own age, you have a very good chance of marrying her to a person who is chaste. If you marry her to a man of 25, you have perhaps one chance in 100. If you marry her to a man of 35, you have perhaps one chance in 10,000. You may not like these facts. I do not like them myself, but I have learned that facts are nonetheless facts on that account. You know the average society bud of 18 and her attitude to a boy of the same age. She regards him as a child, and you think perhaps that it is natural for a girl to be interested in men of 35 and even 45. But I tell you that it is not natural. It is simply one of the perversions of pecuniary sex. The girl is interested in such men because all her young life she has been carefully coached for the marriage market, because she is dressed for it and solemnly brought out and introduced to other players of this exciting game of marriage for money, with its incredible prizes of automobiles and jewels and palaces full of servants and magic checkbooks that never grow empty. But suppose that, instead of regarding her as a prize in a lottery, you let her grow up naturally and taught her the truth about herself, both body and mind. Suppose that, instead of dressing her in ways deliberately contrived to emphasize her sex, you put her in a simple uniform and taught her to be honest and straightforward instead of mincing and coy. Suppose she played athletic games with boys of her own age and invited them to her home, not for jazz, dancing, and stuffing cake and candy, but for the sharing of good music and literature and art. Don't you think that maybe this girl might become interested in a lad of her own age and choose him with some understanding of his real self? You take it for granted that young people should not marry until they can afford it. But stop and consider. Is not this a relic of old days? Always it takes time and deliberate effort of the reason to adjust our conventions to new facts. So face this fact. Marriage today does not necessarily mean children. It may just mean love. It involves little more expense because the young people need cost no more together than they cost in the separate homes of their parents. If they are children of the poor, they are already taking care of themselves. If they are children of the moderately well-off, their parents expect to support them while they are getting an education. And why can they not just as well live together, and the parents of each contribute their share? Let the parents of the boy give him not merely what it cost to keep him at home, but also the sums which otherwise the boy would pay to the brothels. By this argument, I do not mean that I favor keeping young people financially dependent upon their parents. My own son is working his own way through college, and I should be glad to see every young man doing the same. All that I'm saying is that if parents are going to support their children while they're getting an education, they might just as well support them married as single, instead of penalizing matrimony by making all allowances cease at that point. I know a certain ardent feminist who is all for late marriage for women and abhors my ideas on this subject. She wants women to get a chance to develop their personalities, whereas I want to sacrifice them to the frantic exigencies of the male animal. Young things of 17 and 18 have no idea what they are or what they want from life. The mating impulse is a blind frenzy in them, and they must be taught to control it, just as they are taught not to kill when they are angry. In the first place, I point out that young ladies in colleges and in ballrooms give a lot of time and thought to sex, even though they do not call it by that inelegant term. I very much question whether, if we should apply our wisdom to the task of getting our young people happily mated before we sent them off to college, we should not get a lot more serious study out of them than we do now, with all their fussing and flirting and dancing. Second, I am willing to make heroic moral efforts where I see any chance of adequate results, but I have examined the facts and definitely made up my mind that it is not worthwhile, in our present stage of culture, to preach to the mass of men the doctrine that they should abstain from sex experience until they are 25 or 30 years of age. You may storm at them, but they only laugh at you. You may pass laws and try to put them in jail, but you only provide a harvest for blackmailers and grafters. As to sacrificing the girl, my answer is simply that I believe in love. And in this I think the girl will agree with me, if you will let her. I have never heard any qualified person maintain that it hurts a girl to respond to love at the age of 17 or 18. Nor do I think that it hurts a boy, provided that he is taught the virtues of moderation and self-restraint. Without these, it will hurt him to eat, but that is no argument for starving him. As for the question of his maturity and power to judge, we are able at present to keep him from marrying anybody. So I think we might reasonably hope to keep him from marrying a wanton or a slut. Certainly we might find somebody better than the peroxide blonde he now picks up in front of the moving picture palace. The question, at what ages we shall advise our young couple to have children, is a separate one, depending upon many circumstances. First, of course, they should not have any until they are able financially to maintain them. As to the age at which it is physically advisable, that is a question to be settled by physicians and physiologists. I myself had the idea that the proper age would be when the woman had attained her full stature. But my friend Dr. William J. Robinson sent me some statistics from Johns Hopkins Hospital Bulletin, which startled me. This publication for January 1922 gives the results in 500 childbirths, in which the mother's age was from 12 to 16 years inclusive. It appears that pregnancy and labor at these ages are no more dangerous than in older women, but on the other hand, the duration of the labor is actually shorter, and the size of the children is not inferior. These facts are so contrary to the general impression that I content myself with calling attention to them, and leave the commenting to be done by feminists and others who oppose themselves to the idea of early marriage. End of chapter 40. We will continue on to chapter 41 right here on this video. So if you could be kind, hit that like button, and let's continue on. Chapter 41, The Marriage Club, discusses how parents and elders may help the young avoid unhappy marriages. I will make the assumption that you would like to have a trial of my cure for prostitution. You would like to do something right here and now without waiting for the social revolution. Very well. I propose that you shall find a few other parents and boys and girls who are in revolt against our system of hidden vice, and that you will meet and form a modern marriage club. Only you won't call it that, of course. You will tactfully describe it as a literary society or a social circle or an Epworth League. The parents who run it will know what it is for, just as they do today. The only difference being that it will exist to promote love matches instead of money matches. It happens that I am myself a tactless sort of a person, not skillful at avoiding saying what I mean. So, in this chapter, I shall content myself with setting forth exactly what this marriage club will do, and leaving it to more clever people to supply the necessary camouflage. This club will begin by correcting the most stupid of all our educational blunders, the assumption of the necessary immaturity of the young. Our young people nowadays have 10 times as much chance to learn and 10 times as much stimulus to learn as we had. And it is a generally safe assumption that they know much more than we think they do and are ready to learn every sensible and interesting thing. I am carrying on an epistolary acquaintance with a little miss of 12 who has read half a dozen of my books, among the worst of them, and writes me letters of grave appreciation. I have talked on socialism to 1,000 school children and had them question me for an hour, and heard just as worthwhile questions as I have heard from an audience of bankers. Never in my life have I talked about the real things with children that I did not find them proud to be treated seriously, and eager to show that they were worthy of that honor. A great part of our foolishness with children is due to the emptiness of our own heads. These parents will delegate one man and one woman to make a thorough study of the sex education of the young. Of course, there is knowledge about sex which has to be given to the very youngest child, and more must be given as they grow older and ask more questions. But what I have in mind here is that detailed and precise knowledge which must be given to the young when they approach the period of puberty. At this age of 14 or 15, the man will take each of the boys apart and the woman will take each of the girls and will explain to them what they need to know. This duty will not be trusted to parents, for parents have an imbecile fear of talking straight to their children and try to get by with rubbish about bees and flowers. Let every child know that the days of the hole and corner sex business is forever past, and that here is an instructed person who talks real American and knows what he is talking about and will deal with facts instead of with evasions. This club will help to educate the youngsters and also to give them a good time developing both their minds and bodies and learning to know them thoroughly. When they're 16, each one will have another talk, this time about marriage and what it means, learning that it is not merely flirtations and delicious thrills, but a business partnership and the deepest and best of all friendships. So when John finds that he likes Mary, best of all the girls he knows, this won't be a subject for kidding and sly innuendo and blushes and simpering on Mary's part, but an occasion for decent and sensible talk about what each of them really is and what each thinks the other to be. If they think they are in love, then there will be a council of the elder statesmen to consider that case, and what are the chances of happiness in that love. This may sound foreboding, but it is exactly what is done at present, only it is not done honestly and frankly, and therefore does not carry proper weight with the young people. I am an opponent of long engagements, but I am also an opponent of no engagements at all. I know no truer proverb than marry in haste and repent at leisure. It would be my idea that a very young couple should announce their engagement and then wait 6 months and be consulted again about the matter and have a chance to withdraw with no hard feelings if either party thought best. If they wished to go on, they might be asked to wait another 6 months if their elders felt very certain there were reasons to doubt the wisdom of the match. There are, of course, people who, because of disease or physical defect, should never be allowed to marry, and others who might marry but should not be allowed to have children. There should be laws providing for such cases, requiring physical examination before marriage, and in extreme cases providing for a simple and harmless surgical operation to prevent the hopelessly unfit from passing on their defects to the future. But dealing for the moment with normal young persons, members of our modern marriage club, I should say that if, after they have listened to the warning of their elders and have waited for a decent interval to think things over, they still remain of the opinion that they can make a successful marriage, then it is up to the elders to wish them luck. I have known of young couples who have refused to heed warnings and regretted it, but I have known of others who went ahead and had their own way and proved they were right. There is a form of wisdom called experience, and there is another form called love. I hear the worldly and cynical rail at the blindness of young love, and I can see the truth in what they say, but also I can see the deeper truth in the magic dreams of the young soul. Here is a youth who adores a girl, and you know the girl, and it is comical to you because you know she is not any of the things the young imagines. But who are you that claim to know the last thing about a human soul? Look into your own and see how many different things you are. Look back, if you can, to the time when you were young and remember the visions and the hopes. They have lost all reality to you now, but who can say how many of them you might have made real if there had been one other person who believed in them and loved them and would not give them up. I write this, and then I think of the other side, the fools that I have known in love, the trusting women marrying rotten men to reform them, the pitiful people who think that fine phrases and sentimentality can take the place of facts. I implore my young couples to sit down and face the realities of their own natures, to decide what they are and what they want to be. And if there is going to be any change, let it be made and tried out before marriage. I implore them to begin now to control their desires by their reason and judgment, to begin, each of them at that very outset, to carry their share of the burdens and to their share of the hard work. I implore them to value independence and self-reliance in the other, and never above all things to marry from pity, which is a worthy emotion in its place, but has nothing to do with sex, which should be an affair between equals, a matter of partnership and not of parasitism. I think that on the whole, the most dreadful thing in love is the use of it for preying, for the securing of favors and advantages of any sort, whether by men or by women. End of chapter 41. Okay. Before you head over to the next video, well, I will be there with chapter 42. Hit that like button, and if you like what you see here and what you hear here, subscribe to the channel.